It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. We'll give my man a call, 912-268-2328. 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to everybody, in part by Fight TV. Yeah, you can catch us on Fight TV. Download our free app today. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on, the banner that says download the free app. And you can watch the show on your phone. And by the way, keep in mind that all the fights that you want to see, that you can't see maybe because your television provider doesn't offer it, Fight TV does. And we made it real easy because all you got to do is go to BillyCBoxing.com and hit the player. We have an embedded Fight TV player. It'll give you all of Fight TV's broadcasts, whether they're free or pay-per-views. So check it out. We try to make life easy for you. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molino, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching the show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Want to get a signed copy? No problemo. Just visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the book. You can't miss it because it's plastered all over the website, man. Just do that and make sure when you order it, you write what you want me to write. If I'm going to sign it, you might want something specific, like to my best friend, whatever. But anyway, hey, on a serious note, before we get started, everybody here with the Billy C Boxing family want to offer our condolences and prayers for everyone that was killed and or injured in the terrorist attack in New York City yesterday. Once again, a gutless, spineless individual decided to take the lives of some innocent people on a bike path in New York City. At first, they thought it was just a random act, but have now learned that it was indeed a terrorist act. So our thoughts, condolences, and prayers go out to all the friends and family of the people that lost their lives, and, of course, everyone that has been injured in that horrific situation in the city. Unfortunately, we got to move on in life. One thing I will tell you, New Yorkers are tough. We dealt with 9/11, and we'll deal with this. I don't know why they keep trying to target New York because they'll face a losing battle against New Yorkers. I'm a New Yorker through and through, although I love a lot of other places in this beautiful country of ours. New York will always be my home. The other day, there's a bunch of news I want to talk about today, but I'm not sure we're going to get to it. The reason why is because there was a lot of discussion over the last couple of days, people calling me and texting me and emailing me about the Anthony Joshua Carlos Takam fight. And first of all, I just want to start off and say this. Nobody's a bigger fan of Anthony Joshua than me. I've been promoting this guy for a long time. I mean, not only do I think he's the best heavyweight on the planet, I think he's basically keeping the sport of boxing going in the direction that we seem to be heading, at least for 2017. And as time goes on, hopefully it'll keep the this rise back, so to speak. And I think Anthony Joshua played a huge part of it and is still playing a huge part. I did come on the show the other day, and my opinion was that he looked ordinary in his fight against Carlos Takam. And I did say that if that version of Anthony Joshua fought Deontay Wilder, I thought Deontay Wilder might have come out on top in that fight. But that doesn't mean I think that Anthony Joshua would lose to Deontay Wilder if they fought. I think there were a lot of factors that led to AJ's performance, one being that Carlos Takam was a last-minute sub. He was announced 12 days or less prior to the fight. His height was an issue. And I just think mentally, Anthony Joshua took him a few rounds. Plus, like we had talked about, it seemed like his team was specifically working on Anthony Joshua learning how to break an opponent down and be a little more patient in the ring and let the knockout come, even though it may come later in the fight. So I just want to get that off my chest because we got a lot of emails that I'm going to read right now with some negative comments. I'm getting a gist based on some of the titles of the emails concerning AJ. So, my question today is, are some fans being too critical of Anthony Joshua and his performance? Joining me right now from an undisclosed location is my man Sal Rocky Sanacola. And Sal, we talked about it, and I mean, you think fans are being a little tough on AJ?
I think maybe just a little tough. I think, like I always say, Bill, you're only as good in a fan's eyes, especially, as your last fight. So AJ, he may not have looked as stellar as we may have wanted him to see or as we perceived he could be, and that he truly is a special athlete, special boxer. And I think with less than lackluster performance that was put in by him, fans were disappointed. But by all means, a win is a win. This guy got a victory, and I think he would have risen to the occasion if Takam offered a little bit more opposition or a little bit more offense and was pushing Anthony Joshua to rise to that occasion. I almost think that he fought at the level he had to, which is, again, Bill, guess what? That's part of experience. That's part of being a fighter, evolving and learning while you're on the job. I hate to say, but that's probably it.
A lot of fight. You make a good point. You are breaking up a bit, my man, but you make a great point. A lot of times we've seen some great fighters fight down to the level of the opposition in the ring with them that day. I'm not suggesting Carlos Takam is not a worthy opponent, but based on, it's hard. You're only as good as your last performance. Well, the performance that AJ had prior to Carlos Takam was a career-defining performance against Vladimir Klitschko. So that's a tough act to follow, don't you think? That has to take a little while to get back on track. No.
Well, yes, it does, and like we reflected in his entries in his diary, that was a big fight for him. I think it was a defining fight for him, and I also believe that he used what he could to sustain his focus and his anticipation of, hey, I am all that. I can do this. I've done it before. So, like I said, let's give him a little pass on this one. And like I said, he'll rise to the occasion, I'm sure. The guy's a great professional.
No doubt.
And
no, I said no doubt.
Sorry?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. He's a great professional. And I think that he is going to hold the heavyweight championship for a good while. I'm not saying he's unbeatable. And I'm not saying every time he fights, people are going to feel a little bit braver about, hey, guess what? Maybe he's not all that. But I think once in the ring with Anthony Joshua, he will rise to the occasion and get the job done the way he wants to get it done, the way he can get it done. It may not look pretty, it may not look great, but he'll get it done.
He's
got that fire, he's got that fight.
We got some emails. I want to get started on the emails.
Yes.
First one's from Jesse. He says, "Hey, Billy C and Sal, saw some parts of the fight of AJ against Takam, and he looked looked like AJ was too complacent with just throwing a jab here and there instead of one, 2, and 3 combinations." He said he should have finished him in 4 when he knocked him down. He didn't attack with the same intensity. This performance shouldn't delay in the big fights for him against guys such as Parker, Wilder, Ortiz, Fury, or Pulev. AJ is a composed fighter and does not fight with ferocity or emotions. I don't fault him for fighting like that as long as he's very active in a fight and not complacent. Well, before I go on to the next comment, first of all, he's the best heavyweight. So, yeah, the names on the list as far as Pulev, Pulev lost his opportunity. If Fury comes back, Fury, I'm sure they'll make a fight because of the money that can be made over in England. But definitely, I would think that Wilder has to be the guy, or Joseph Parker has to be the guy that AJ fights next. And like I said earlier, I really believe that he was working on some stuff in camp to break his opponent down. I mean, we heard some comments post-fight to suggest that, and by his actions. And it's funny that Jesse says he should have went after him when he dropped him in the 4th round, Sal. But that's something that fighters usually get criticized about when they drop a fighter and then they go after him too quickly and find their own asses on the canvas. I mean, that is a mistake that fighters make. You drop a guy, maybe it was a flash knockdown, maybe he wasn't really that hurt. You got to be careful going in for the kill. You got to make sure that he's indeed hurt. And I truly believe that AJ was trying to break him down like they practiced in camp. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think I agree with the letter. I think when he had him down in the 4th round, I think AJ could have been careful, but he could have followed up and dismantled Takam bit by bit and just jump on him a little bit more with like I said, maybe the ferocity, some kind of like intensity, some kind of controlled rage, if you will. I always use that, but I thought he did have him hurt. I thought that he could have further dismantled him and pose him and put him down again. But, I'm also saying, as I reflected the other day, and I suggested, maybe his camp was also concerned that he would punch himself out in his round like he did against Vladimir Klitschko after he put him down. And, what happened in the next round, he found out he was down. So maybe they were looking at it from experience, and that's what happens with each fight. You gain more and more experience. So maybe that was a little bit Bell in his mind saying, okay, I'm not going to jump all over him. I'm not going to punch myself out. If it comes, it comes. I'll be a little more methodical, and I'll try and take him apart bit by bit. That's all I could say.
Well, the truth was that Takam wasn't really hurt. Remember, his glove hit the canvas, and he was even pissed that the referee ruled it a knockdown. So I don't know. I think that AJ made the right decision in that case, not thinking that his guy was that hurt. And I'm not suggesting he shouldn't have went after him either, because I thought that if he would have opened up the guns and just let loose, he could have stopped him at any point. That was my opinion.
I felt that too.
Yeah, that was my opinion from the whole fight, though. And yeah, it's funny, but anyway, he says, do you think Yaffe is ready for top 5 fighters? I was thinking maybe Kudras next. I agree. Kudras would be a decent opponent, but yeah, he's there. He's a champion, so he's got to fight whoever. He says, Billy, in an interview I saw from Robert Garcia, Robert mentioned that 3 of his fighters who left to go to Mayweather Promotions about 2 years ago all want out of their contracts. He said that one of his fighters actually keeps calling Mayweather Promotions about fights, and they give him no answers. They only have fought once in their time with Mayweather Promotions. Your thoughts on this situation, and is it normal? My thoughts on this situation is, listen, Floyd Mayweather taking his own career out of the picture and the success that he's had. I've said many times I feel that Floyd Mayweather should focus on his promotional company. He could have the same kind of success as Oscar De La Hoya had. But the one thing about Floyd's personality, and this is just my opinion, because I don't know Floyd Mayweather personally, and I don't care to. But the truth of the matter is that Floyd is about Floyd. And I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that Floyd does not really want a fighter that could come close or even, God forbid, exceeding his popularity. So I think he's always going to keep a fighter down a little bit. And as far as, and that's just my opinion about getting wrapped up with Floyd, but the truth of the matter is when these guys, and Al Heyman and the Premier Boxing Championship has also shown that, when you sign a bunch of fighters and you're just not putting on enough fights to keep them all busy, you're always going to hear rumblings. So I suggest this to any fighter that's going to sign with somebody. Make sure you know what you're signing with. Make sure you know what your limitations are as a fighter. Who's calling all the shots. When I sign fighters, I'm signing as an advisor, basically. I want to collectively, as a team, make decisions. And sometimes fights aren't available. Today's fighter doesn't want to fight any tough fights. I've had many times where you got a 5-0 fighter, you call a 1-8 guy, and he doesn't want to take the fight. Or you call a 5-0 guy to fight a 2-5 guy, and he doesn't want to take the fight. The 2-5 guy's too tough for him. So, there's a lot of parts of that. So, here's another email, Sal. And this one is, I got a couple of them here that are all, the subjects are all about Anthony Joshua and his fight. So let's see this. And this is from my man Don, first-time writer to us, write into us. He says, "Oh, no, AJ didn't destroy Takam in 3 rounds, so he's ordinary, Billy C." He's throwing my own words back at me. He says, "Billy, I got a lot of respect for you, but I think that's BS. I didn't watch the fight until Sunday night. I did see comments on Facebook before watching it with a lot of boxing fans criticizing AJ. I figured there's no way Takam got knocked down or got 2 cuts from punches, or the stoppage occurred after 17 punches thrown by Joshua in the 10th round with Takam throwing nothing back, or that Takam only won 1 round. I didn't even give him 1 round, but anyway, he says, I figured there was no way any of this happened in the fight because boxing fans weren't stupid enough to criticize AJ if it did happen. I wasn't looking forward to watching the fight because I figured the fans couldn't be that stupid. I was wrong. Joshua did what he was supposed to do. He got tired, but he may have been affected by the headbutt to his nose. It can't be pretended that he was exhausted as he was in the Klitschko fight because against Takam, he kept throwing punches. People were saying the ref called time to help Joshua in case he was tired. Maybe they were too stupid to know that this is normal for referees to call time so a doctor can look at a fighter who's cut. People who were saying the stoppage was early, BS. Takam won 1 round. He was cut in the 4th and again in the 7th. In the 10th, Anthony Joshua landed 17 punches on Takam. 17. He didn't throw anything back. If you're not defending yourself, a fight might be stopped. Real fights aren't Rocky movies. AJ is still the best heavyweight. Boxing fans are some of the stupidest people. Not you, Billy C. In fact, you helped me see through the Floyd Mayweather TBE BS or the con that he was this great example of the sweet science. But boxing fans in general are dumb. I read all these comments of people ripping Joshua, and on Sunday I saw the fight they didn't watch. Deontay Wilder fights like a drunk octopus. If Joshua can't beat a fraud like Wilder, I'll admit he isn't that good. But no, he didn't look ordinary. The Joshua haters would call him a fraud if he went 100-0 with 100 knockouts. If we could send AJ back in the time machine to fight Ali and Tyson in their primes and he beat them, people would still call him a fraud. I really love this email. And the truth of the matter, the truth of the matter is that when I said AJ looked ordinary, I can't believe, and I'm not just saying this about this emailer. And thanks for the email, Don. I don't want people to think that I've turned on AJ because I certainly didn't. I do believe he looked ordinary, and I meant that in a way of like I just said to you, Sal. How do you come back after looking so fantastic in a career-defining fight like he did in the Klitschko fight and then fight again? It's only natural to look ordinary. The fight against Takam, nobody cared really about that fight. People wanted to see AJ because we can't get enough of him But the fight we all want to see is against Deontay. And yes, I made that statement that if the same AJ shows up to fight Deontay as the AJ who fought Carlos Takam, Deontay Wilder could very easily come out on top. But I would find that hard to believe that Anthony Joshua's mindset wouldn't be similar to the mindset he possessed when he stepped in the ring with Klitschko. Deontay Wilder brings a lot more to the table, and as far as getting, rising up to the occasion, as you like to say, he would have to do that. So no, I agree with Don that a lot of fans are being overcritical of AJ. I don't want to be grouped in with them. I was just calling it like it is. I still love Anthony Joshua. I still think he's the best heavyweight, and I still think he's going to knock the crap out of Deontay Wilder. Your thoughts, Rocky Senecola?
Well, thank you, Bill. I will tell you this. You used the term looked ordinary. You didn't say he was ordinary, and that's the difference because, like I said, one fighter's performance on an off night, hey, guess what? That's what it led to. He may have looked a little bit less spectacular than you or I would have liked to have seen him or anticipated seeing him. No biggie. I mean, the guy is a fighter. He's a professional. He'll come to fight. I'm sure he could rise to the occasion on the level of fighter if this was the kind of fight that he needed to do. So he did. Maybe he was trying some things out that he was working on in the gym. I don't know. The bottom line is, he got the victory, and I'm sure we're going to see a spectacular Anthony Joshua the next time he enters the ring. And this was all part of the learning curve for him to do that. And you know what? I love the comment, the drunken octopus.
I know. That was good.
I mean, let me tell you something. At some point, it looks, when Deontay Wilder does wail away with his punches and combinations, maybe they don't flow as smooth and aren't as fluent and this and that. But a drunken octopus, I can see what he meant by that comment. I'm still cracking up over it. And, well, we'll see.
Yeah, no, I like that too. And, like I've said many times, Deontay Wilder has displayed that he has some boxing ability once. Only once. Another email here. This is from our man, Coach. He says, hey, Billy C., I know you don't like to get political, but I have to vent after yesterday's tragedy. My chat room friends here is what do you do if you find yourself in a conversation with somebody about terrorist attacks who doesn't believe in retaliation? First, ask if military force is appropriate. Then, when the person says no, ask why not. Wait until he says something like it would be awful just causing more innocent deaths and we shouldn't cause any more violence, etc. Then after just adjusting to your best Jack Dempsey stance, when he's in mid-sentence, punch him right in the face as hard as you can. When he gets back up to punch you, politely point out that it would be a mistake and contrary to his own values to strike you back, because that would be awful and he should not cause more violence. You know it. Then wait until he agrees and then has pledged not to commit additional violence. Slam him right in the face again, just harder this time, and repeat these steps until he understands that sometimes it's necessary to punch back. A pretty good analogy from my man, Coach Sal. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, Coach does know how to put a little bit of a touch on that, and I agree. And, it was pretty straightforward. And you're going to get hit, you strike back. And, what the heck? You're going to have a bully just intimidate you all day, and you got to show you got strength too. And not to mess around with this. And that's it. Yeah, not to get political, but it is political.
Yeah, and
it's a shame.
It's a tragedy what happened yesterday. And,
it is a tragedy.
And I can't stand some political views of people that feel we should do nothing, and everything's great, honky dory, and it's the same. I hate to say it, but it's the same people that like to use the race card too often. It's maybe they're not the same person, but it's along the same lines. I mean, sometimes life isn't great, and you got to do what you got to do. If you want to live in fear, then just keep having the blind mask. If you want to live in a racist world, then keep the blind mask on. It's time to open up your eyes, boys and girls. Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, got another email, and we'll keep this thing moving. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C. will be right back.
Living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun, and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now.
I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
And it was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now. Stop.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
This is important news for people who had a hip replacement and then had to have additional surgery as the result of a faulty hip implant or were diagnosed with high levels of metal in the blood, known as metallosis. You may have a right to a cash award and medical expenses. If you have been diagnosed with high levels of metal in your blood or have required more surgery because of hip implant failure, call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now. Our first consultation is free and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C Show. Glad you could be with us. And don't forget, keep your eyes and ears, keep your eyes and ears peeled for our next Billy C get together. I hope to be announcing that pretty soon. Got another email here. This is from our very own. I call him our very own because he's got a column up on BillyCBoxing.com. My man Johnston. He was also instrumental in getting us the diary from Anthony Joshua leading up to the fight this past weekend. And the title says, which got me a little nervous, Sal, it says, My Rant. So let's see what it says. He starts off by saying, hey, Billy C and Sal, give you my apologies for the length of this email, but I got to get this off my chest. If I had a mobile phone that worked, I would just call in. But he said, I want to clear up the Anthony Joshua diary exclusive that I sent you last week. AJ did not write his diary every day in the week leading up to his fight against Takam. It was actually a dictation of his thoughts to a reporter that released on Fight Week, which is done in one interview. The thoughts were done in one interview, and he released them on Fight Week. He says, I didn't find this out until recently. Otherwise, I would have said that to you guys. AJ has done a diary every fight since Charles Martin. My bad for not sending you the diary for the Klitschko fight, but I missed it. No big deal. Don't beat yourself up, Johnston. Be easy on yourself. Man.
Be easy, buddy.
Right?
It was a great entree.
It was okay. Yeah, it's okay, man. Get down off the ledge, my man. Get down off the ledge, right, Sal? Stop having somebody shoot out the legs of that chair you're hanging by. But anyway, he says the reason why I want to clear this up is mainly because of Dax's comments on Monday's show. Hey, before I read on. I totally disagree with Dax on his assessment. I said so on Monday. Dax was, in my opinion, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and certainly Dax has his. But in my opinion, he was way off on some of his comments about AJ. But unlike some other guys I won't mention, like Teddy Atlas. Oh, did I mention him? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And certainly Dax, who's one of the most knowledgeable boxing guys I know. And Sal and I learned that he watches every fight frame by frame. It must take him 15, 16 hours to watch a fight, huh?
Absolutely, but you definitely get the details compounded tenfold.
Yeah, we have a terrible. You're frozen, and so hopefully
I'm frozen.
Hopefully that'll catch up.
Hey, I've got these new buttons on this microphone I've never looked at before.
Maybe you shouldn't play with them now.
And it says don't get.
Well, maybe you shouldn't play with them now. But let me continue reading this email. He says, Billy, I respect your views as I do Sal's and Dax's, but let me see something. He suggest. Okay, I skipped over a spot. The reason why I wanted to clear this up mainly is because of Dax's comments on Monday. He suggested that AJ was concentrating on the wrong things in the lead up to the Takam fight. Well, that's not a fair reflection on Joshua's preparations, as you can clearly see by his results since the Charles Martin knockout. I respect your views, Billy, as I do Sal's and Dax's, but I do not agree that Wilder would have beaten AJ even if he fought at the level he showed against Takam. Yes, the fight was not spectacular, which we are used to, but Wilder has not looked good only one time in 38 fights. I honestly believe that I could find Wilder harder fights by just popping into my local pub. That's how much I rate him as a pub fighter. There's more here, but I want to go one more time. I just want people to understand. I don't get how people misinterpret things. I could see how frustrating it must be if you're a superstar, an athlete, or a high-profile person, and you say something, and people misinterpret it. I said, and just like you clarified, Sal, I said he looked ordinary against Takam. I did not say he was an ordinary fighter. I didn't say that he lost anything. I didn't say I lost respect for him. I didn't say any of that. And I did say that if the same guy, Anthony Joshua, that fought Takam, fought Deontay on that night, I felt Deontay would have won. And I believe that. But I also just said today that it would be hard for me to comprehend that Anthony Joshua wouldn't be the best Anthony Joshua could be in a fight against Deontay Wilder. I don't know if his mindset was like that with Carlos Takam. I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's funny you should ask me. It's like I say, Billy. It's not rocket science, but like I say, any given night. And all you made was an example saying, well, if that was the Anthony Joshua that would have shown up in a fight against Deontay Wilder, it may have been a different story. And that's the fight game, guys. This is it. We don't know what's going on in the heart, mind, and soul and spirit and how a fighter may enter the ring that night. It's all predicted. It's all using the indicators of a consistency that this guy's solid, this guy could do this guy could do that, he comes in shape, he's ready to fight, he's got his head on straight. We all anticipate that. But those are the variables that are the unknown. And any given night, the fighter may have an off night. Might be another night where another opponent may have risen to the occasion, and he's going to dismantle him and expose him and show him what he was that night. And that's all. Same thing with Tyson and Mathis and Douglas. I mean, forget about it. You know what I mean? It depends upon of so many variables. But give Anthony Joshua a break, guys. He's a great fighter. And maybe he looked a little bit ordinary that night, but believe me, he's not an ordinary fighter.
Well, first of all, people are it seems the gist today is that they're being critical of the criticisms on AJ. Right. They're not being rough on AJ. Some people were rough on AJ after the fight. And like Johnston points out, Dax was one of them. But anyway, he says... excuse me. He says Joshua will always have a hype surrounding him because we have not had a world champion that has been adored by the British public since Frank Bruno, even though it was a very short reign. Fury did a fantastic job against Klitschko, but he couldn't get the credibility he deserves beyond the boxing faithful. Hay didn't live up to the expectations that he promised, and Lewis was never really accepted by the British public because he was a Canadian. Even if AJ loses the fight, fans in Britain will not turn their backs on him, just like fans didn't turn on Bruno because we can relate to him, the same as AJ. I don't think many fans in the U.S. can relate to the bomb squad, he writes. He's got some more. I want to comment real quickly because I'm going to have to take a quick break here. I think Anthony Joshua is a class act outside of the ring, and I think that's a breath of fresh air. Frank Bruno seemed to have the same personality. And, the funny thing about Lennox Lewis, I never was a big fan of Lennox Lewis until he stayed retired. I've gained more respect for him now that he's retired and stayed retired. And I always wondered what the hell he was. Anyway, was he a Brit? Was he a Canadian? It's funny that Johnston writes that. But, whenever you're in the public eye, you're going to be set up for criticism. Don't you think, Sal?
Let me tell you, it's even though I'm not the super celebrity or anything else I thought I might have risen to for my boxing, my life isn't over yet. But let me tell you something. Whenever you are on a pinnacle or on top of a mountain or on top of somewhere else, you are open and you are a target.
Hey, Sal, I just want to say something here. I lean over as you're talking, I look at the chat room, and I can't help but read a comment that you made. You wrote, I think you're right, Willie. I'm laying off the buttons until later. Well, as everyone can see that's watching on the TV version right now, Sal did not lay off the buttons because we don't have his video anymore. So we appreciate that, Sal, and maybe you can fix that while we take a short break. Sal is mechanically, well, not mechanically, but technology inclined. So, Sal, find the right buttons, get back on the camera. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Stop living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now.
I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
And it was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And we finally got Mr. Technology back on camera. But I don't know. I don't know. Between that and your set today, Sal, you got me. You got me all discombobulated. You know, and your connection sounds like you better throw those squirrels another couple of walnuts to keep them running, man. But anyway, back to this email because it's starting to get good. I glanced over the end of it here, and Johnston says, Dax made some outrageous comments and almost sounded like a real hater of AJ and a lover of Wilder. I don't know if that's the case, but anyway, he says, I mean, Joshua's slowly becoming the flavor of the month. Yeah, that was I was shocked when Dax said that, Sal. You know, when he said that, I was like, what the hell's he talking about? You know, I mean, Joshua is by no means the flavor of the month. I mean, the guy's a real deal. What did you think of that comment by Dax?
I believe Dax, knowing Dax, I think that he was looking just at the assessment of how, we are putting a fighter, not just AJ, of how maybe we put him up there and tout him as being the new ambassador of boxing, if you will, and realizing that, guess what? He's human and he's vulnerable and he could be exposed to be less than what we or others put him up to being. And I don't think it was a vicious comment. I don't think it was anything that was anything else, just what he expressed in his opinion that maybe it was the fighter of the month that he fought in Takam as the flavor of the month. I think surely that Dax does realize that Anthony Joshua, if you want to say the heavyweight division is less than spectacular, maybe Joshua could be looked at as the best of the bad right now. But there are some good contenders. There are some good fighters out there in the heavyweight division. And like I said, I think, not to talk for Dax, but I'll give him a little pass on it. I don't think he was really just slam bashing Anthony Joshua at that moment. I think he was just giving an opinion as far as what that performance turned in. But I think Dax can explain it for better himself.
Well, like I said to him on Monday, I thought he was way off base. But anyway, he says
there were some things. There were some things. I told you I did agree, but it wasn't the whole thing. But there were some things that I felt, that I did chime in and said I kind of felt that Dax was on something there that made kind of sense. But we'll have to review that.
His criticisms of Anthony Joshua and the manner in which he criticized. My criticism was he looked ordinary, and I got a lot of heat for that, which, to me, it really wasn't. I wasn't really being that negative. But Dax was negative. And, by just like Johnson says, by suggesting that Joshua's the flavor of the month.
We tend to put a fighter up there on a pedestal, and we want to believe he's all that he is and that he can be the world beater that he is. But guess what? In the end of the day, like I said, Bill, I beat it up because styles do make fights. And for a fighter to shine and be looking spectacular, he has to have the right dance partner. And Takam was a dance partner that didn't allow Anthony Joshua to flow as evenly. That's all.
Well, Dax, in my opinion, on Monday followed the same as a lot of young fans where, they watch a fighter, they like a fighter, and then all of a sudden the fighter doesn't look good, and they start using the E word, the exposed. He was exposed. And Dax, although he didn't say that, he gave that, it was sort of like that sound. It was sounding like he was beating around the bush. But again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I respect Dax's. If he feels that Anthony Joshua's not all that, then, good for him. I disagree. I do think Anthony Joshua is all that. I think he's the best heavyweight in the world. And I think that, he had a fight against an awkward guy, and maybe he's looking ahead for bigger and better things. And like some of the emailers said earlier, the guy knocked him out. I mean, you can't, just like people they shouldn't have criticized Timothy Bradley when the judges robbed Manny Pacquiao of a win, and then Timothy Bradley took the heat. It was the same situation. You can't blame AJ for the referee stopping the fight. He didn't stop the fight. He wanted to knock out.
True.
And not only that, but Anthony Joshua, I'm telling you that, and I don't know this, nobody told me this, but it's so obvious, that they worked on, and they probably are continuing to work on breaking an opponent down. Sal, when we look at one of Anthony Joshua's weaknesses, and people could say his chin, they say the same thing about Deontay, they said the same thing about Klitschko, and they've been down, but I don't know if Deontay's been down in a pro fight. I know he's been hurt, but I don't know if he's been down. But the bottom line is they, with the exception of Anthony Joshua just knocking out Klitschko, he hasn't been knocked out. Obviously, Deontay hasn't been knocked out. But I could see a team like Anthony Joshua's, who's always trying to get better, go back and review the tapes from the Klitschko fight. And just like I said earlier, this was a career-defining fight. But I could see them go back to the tape and sitting and reviewing the tape and saying, hey, look, here's what we did. We ran out of gas, AJ. So what can we do to run out of gas? Well, let's see why you ran out of gas. And assuming that he does the correct conditioning and everything, I mean, unless a fighter just doesn't want to do the conditioning, I would think that the top upper echelon fighters are doing the road work and doing what they have to do. Maybe they have to mix that up a bit. I don't know. But they probably are saying, listen, here's what you did wrong. And when I rewatched that fight, the thing he did do wrong was he tried to, he started off a little slow and cautious, but then he tried to take out Klitschko quickly, which he was accustomed to. Let's face it, AJ was accustomed to taking out fighters quickly. Maybe that's part of why they said, no, here's how you accomplish two things. One, you break a fighter down. Not only are you conserving energy by doing so, you're weakening your opponent, and just be patient to take him out in the later rounds. And I think that was Anthony Joshua's game plan going into the Carlos Takam fight, and he displayed that. He did that because you did see him pour it on a little bit. Then all of a sudden it was like he almost said to himself, oh, wait a minute. I got to finish breaking down my opponent, and then in some of the post-fight interviews he said, hey, I called for this knockout in the 10th, 11th, or 12th round, which is also an indication that they were working on something. That's what I see as somebody looking in from the outside, Sal. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do, Bill. It's like I said earlier, twice. I said the other day and today that, I think they were concerned that, hey, you don't blow out your gas and your combinations and you try to dispose of an opponent. Once you do have them hurt, you do it methodically. You take them down. You dismantle them if you can. And so, not to be hypocritical, but, that's what I think he was working on. A fighter will take a fight, and he'll learn from it. He'll have his camp, point things out. Okay, we got to work on this. We got to work on that. So when he had the occasion to work on it during the course of this past fight, that's exactly what I believe he did. Because I felt that Anthony Joshua, not at any time, but most of any time, could have done away or taken out Takam. And I thought he had the power. I thought he had the ability. And I don't think that Anthony Joshua felt at any time he was in real jeopardy of getting tagged or hurt or losing that fight the other night. So I think he was utilizing what his team suggested, not blow it all out once you got an opponent down. Take your time, dismantle. Let's see you get through this and hurt them and take them apart one by one, and then you drop the bomb later on and see what happens. And yes, we can't help it. The referee did stop the fight. In fact, I gave my opinion. I thought the referee was pro Joshua on every indicator that I saw, and he wanted the fight over too. So, like I said, that was my observation as an armchair boxing fan and quarterback. But the bottom line is, I thought that the referee called the fight, and he did it for whatever reason he chose to do it. I thought he could have let the fight go on one or two more minutes, but who knows? I can't even say.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree. Because when you think about the fight and you get a chance to rewatch it, like I've done a few times, not frame by frame like Dax, but I've rewatched the fight a few times, and I mean, truthfully, one of the emailers earlier was right. Carlos Takam was cut. He was cut pretty bad. He kept pawing at the cut with his glove. He also indicated like he wanted some type of, I don't know. He wanted to get treated, it seemed. He looked at the ref, and the ref had stopped the action and said, are you quitting? Are you quitting the fight? And
maybe
no,
that occurred.
No,
maybe we don't know that.
No,
maybe
we do know that.
We
do know that. It happened. He stopped the action and he looked at the fighter. It happened during the fight. He looked at the fight. He says, are you quitting? Do you want me to stop the fight? And then Carlos Takam said, no. So he's okay, continue. And then they went to the corner. They kind of stopped the bleeding, but Carlos Takam still kept pawing at it. And then in between, during rounds, the referee and prior to the start of a round had the ringside physician look and check out the cut. And, that's normal procedure. That's the protocol. Larry Hazard, which was scheduled to come on today, had a prior engagement, so I would have loved to have asked him his thoughts on this. But, that's the protocol. And one thing I want to point out that I noticed about the British ringside doctors, which, again, blows away some of the U.S. doctors. How many times have you watched a fighter get cut in the United States, and then right after the minute rest and the corner works on the cut, the physician is called in to check to see if the fighter can continue. And what does he do? He rips apart the cut, looking in there for everything that the cut man just did to patch it up. The doctor rips it apart. They didn't do that in England. The guy looked at the eye after it was attended to and determined that it was okay to. You're laughing because it's true, right? I mean, they do that, right?
How many times did my eye look like an open steak? And, I was during the days when they could put cement in your eye or whatever. Not really. Collodium and this one and that one and all these things that are banned today. And, I remember one fight where I had 38 stitches here. Don Turner was putting in the collodium and all this stuff, whatever it might have been. And the ringside physician came back to me after in between and just chipped the whole stuff off and out, and the blood's pouring out, and it's like, look, you just took my ringside surgeon's work. You just threw it out the door. Of course it's going to let the blood flow.
Right.
It was funny.
No, they all seem to do that. It is funny. But anyway, continuing with the email, he says, meaning he says, I mean, Joshua slowly becoming the flavor of the month. He's talking about Dax's comments. He says, come on, man. He is the flavor of the year this side of the pond, whether you like it or not. Watch him pick up several awards come the end of the year. I mean, how many fighters can sell out attendances like he does? He won a world title in his 16th fight, and that was because Charles Martin called him out, and he knew he could beat him. That wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. That just shows you the depth of the heavyweight division. It's shallow, and AJ is the big fish in a small pond. He is a big fish in a small pond. The sanctioning bodies make the division look weak because we don't have ranked contenders that are truly ranked. Their number one contender in one division is not even ranked in another, and that's the problem. But if you did have 10, if you were able to pick out the 10 best heavyweights in the world, I think they're not as bad as people think. We got a guy fighting this weekend, Dominic Brazil, who I think could beat Deontay Wilder. He's better than people give him credit for, and he's just learning. He was a late bloomer. He was a football player with an injury forced him to take up boxing. As far as Charles Martin, he, in my opinion, had no business being a world champion. But like I say all the time, there's two rules I follow with my fighters. Never turn down a world title shot and never turn down a humongous purse, regardless of the situation. And AJ and his team, they weren't ready for a title fight. They were certainly planning a different approach to his career, but that title shot came in his hands, and they took advantage of it, and the rest is history. One last point he makes, he says, we can all agree that AJ struggled because of the size at Takam and because he only had 2 weeks to make slight alterations. I honestly don't believe there's anyone around at the moment that can beat Anthony Joshua, and that's not because he's the best thing since sliced bread. It's because there aren't anyone else good enough. Maybe in a few years' time, Daniel Dubois will be the young buck that takes over, but then again, he's only in the early stages of his career, so who knows? Listen, thanks for the email, Johnston. And you could catch Johnson. He's actually has a column up on BillyCBoxing.com. The thing is that I do agree that boxing fans today, Sal, have a tendency to jump the gun a little bit. I think the fact that they've been force-fed showcase fight. You see, this is where. This is my reason, okay? And this is a perfect time to throw it back in everybody's face. When I sound critical and negative all the time, and I'm saying, oh, this guy didn't fight this one, et cetera, these are the reasons why. If you're a young fan and you have drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and you look at a guy in his career, at least the last decade of his career, in a guy like Floyd Mayweather, who cherry-picked his opponents and picked the guys at the right time, and or if you're a fan of Showtime and we're watching up until this year, because this year has been a great year, fights that, you have the A side versus the B side, and you watch a guy come in and destroy the other guy, and I come on the show the following day and I say, well, that was a showcase fight, that he had no business fighting that guy, so on and so forth. Well, these are the reasons. When they climb the ladder, and Sal and I have talked about the rungs of a ladder, we have talked about it a million times. If you climb the ladder of contenders, even the watered-down contenders in whichever sanctioning body you decide to align yourself with, if you climbed that ladder in a progression of some sorts, the fighter would naturally get better as time goes on. But because of the nature of the business, because of the Kool-Aid thought process of least risk, max reward, don't fight anybody tough if you're going to get paid, not that I disagree with that mentality, but that has turned the sport into what we have. So you see a guy like Anthony Joshua, who has taken over the heavyweight division, have what I call a bad night, even though it wasn't bad. When you look at the statistics, he still battered his opponent. He still won every round. Some people gave Takam one round. I didn't. But, he beats every, and he wins by stoppage, and that was a poor performance. That was an ordinary performance, as I put it. You could see where people are defensive, Sal, but the truth is that, the truth is simply, if fighters climb the ladder, we would be seeing better fights at this level. You wouldn't see a guy that dominates for 10 or 12 rounds.
No, it's true. And like I said, the early days that I remember is you get a ranking, you're in the top 10, top 15, you're looking to fight. You're challenging yourself. You're looking to fight. If I was top 15, I'm looking to fight someone in the top 10. Once I'm in the top 10, I'm looking to fight somebody in the top 5. And that's the way it used to go. And that's the way it should go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it should, but it don't. But
it does not.
Anyway. Hey, some other, let's just get people caught up here. We're going to be taking a break. We're kicking you to the curb. I got Alex Papali coming on.
Just when I get my system working, huh?
Yeah, well, you threw me off here with this day, but anyway, I threw you off. I forgot to mention.
Hey, it's like a fighter. You gotta go into the ring of battle not knowing all the elements involved here. So you rise to the occasion. You get hit, this and that. I threw you off. I'm sorry. It was a. I need a pass.
In some other, go back to detention. You're getting no pass. Back to some other sports in the World Series. What a game last night! I tell you the truth. This really, just outside of boxing here for a sec, this really has been one of the most entertaining World Series. And to tell you the truth, the playoffs leading up to the World Series were pretty entertaining too. I mean, they have all been tough games. Even Game
Dramatic
5.
Games, yeah.
When you look at Game 5 the other night, and you have arguably the two best pitchers for each team, low run pitches. A guy. Clayton Kershaw. I mean, nobody can hit this guy. And at the end of the night, the final score is 13-12. 14 hits each. I mean, you're like, oh my God,
it breaks the rule.
Yeah, it's like, geez, And the Dodgers. Remember something. The Astros have hit more runs, over 100 more runs. I believe it's 120-something more runs than every other team in Major League Baseball for 2017 for this season. So I mean, this is a run-scoring team. They can smash the ball. There's no question about it. Well, last night it looked like it was going to start off to the same. In the third inning, the Astros were up at the plate, top of the third, and Springer crushed one to give the Astros a 1-0 lead. And Hill was on the mound, and he was pitching good for the Dodgers. I couldn't stay awake, man. A couple of scotches and then some. I was nodding out.
We had Halloween to deal with.
Yeah, and I missed all the fireworks. I nodded out and caught the end and the recap. But in the bottom of the sixth, the Dodgers put up 2 runs to go ahead. 2-1, and then in the bottom of the third, they put up an insurance home run, a solo shot to win 3-1 to force a Game 7. Now, in case you're wondering, the Dodgers were down 3-2, leading, going into this game, which is back in L.A. So the Astros only really had to win 1 of 2 to become a World Series champion. Well, now all bets are off. The series is tied. You don't look at who won what. You don't look at who's pitching. Everybody's available. The World Series is tied 3 games apiece. It will be determined who wins the World Series tonight. So make sure you watch it. I'm anticipating another great game. We'll see who. I know Kershaw is not starting for the Dodgers. And remember, Verlander was on the mound last night for the Astros. But don't be surprised if you see Kershaw and Verlander and everybody else that can throw a ball get in the game tonight, because tonight it's all on the line. And we will know by tomorrow morning who the World Series champion is. So good luck to both of these teams. They're both, in my opinion, the 2 best teams in baseball for 2017. And justifiably, they're in the World Series. So I'm looking forward to this. Dodgers topped the Astros last night 3-1 to force a Game 7. In the NBA, the Pacers beat the Kings 101-83. My Nets suck. You know, what is it with all my teams, Sal? You know?
I think, you know what, Bill? I don't know if you choose the wrong teams, man. I don't know. You just got to – it's that gray cloud syndrome. I don't know. You ever see that movie, what was it called, with Richard Dreyfuss, about a horse race track, and he's always losing and this and that, and he finally picks a winner or whatever the heck. And he's feeling lucky for the day. That's what we need. We need you to get that lucky string together.
My 2 favorite Richard Dreyfuss movies, obviously Jaws. Jaws.
Jaws. We're gonna need a bigger boat.
But the other one, we're gonna need a bigger boat. The other one is American Graffiti. I thought he was great in American Graffiti.
I forgot all about American
Graffiti. He's a star. He was a star. He was the one.
How could I forget that classic?
He was chasing around. I think it was Daryl Hannah, wasn't it? And
I think it was Daryl Hannah.
Wasn't she the blonde?
Oh my gosh, the young stars who were teenagers looked like high school bebops.
I think it was her. For some reason, I think it was her in that T-Bird. But anyway. The Thunder by the way, the Suns beat the Nets 122-114. The Thunder beat the Bucks 110-91, and the Lakers topped the Pistons 113-93. Over in the NHL, 3 games. The Rangers beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights 6-4. Red Wings beat the Coyotes 5-3, and the Jets beat the Wild 2-1. That was in some other sports. And one thing I want to mention before we kick you to the curb, you know I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. They're my college football team. But I also love the Georgia Bulldogs and Boise State. Those are my three favorite college teams: Alabama, Boise State, and Georgia Bulldogs. And the Georgia Bulldogs, it was announced last night that they, going into the college championship series, they actually are ranked as the #1 team over my Crimson Tide. So they, according to the championship series, the powers that be, they have Georgia in the driver's seat. Now, remember, assuming Georgia can get by Auburn and face Alabama, which they'll face either way, whether they get by Auburn or not, for the SEC championship, and assuming Alabama wins their next games, one of those 2 teams is going to have a loss. And it's going to be interesting to see how the BCS ranks these college teams. I'm thinking that if Alabama and Georgia both go undefeated until they face each other, either team that loses still should find themselves in the BCS championship. One of the wild card teams here in the mix is Notre Dame, who's in the tops as well. And we got some other good teams up there. Penn State dropped. They lost. Ohio State won. They moved up. Their only losses to Alabama. So we got a pretty exciting college playoff heading our way. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, I got one more email, which I'm going to read later. And this has to do with Triple D. You know who I'm talking about with Triple D, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Who?
Gentleman in the chat room.
No. Triple D is now Daniel Dubois. His nickname is Dynamite Daniel Dubois, and they're referring to him now as Triple D. I caught that in the press this morning, and I have an email from my man Willie, which I'm going to read really quickly when it comes time, because he doesn't like me to drag out his emails, but I am going to read it quickly, but not right now. Right now, we're going to take a break. Sal, you have a great day. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, we're going to have my man Alex Papali with us, and we're going to talk about this week's Blast from the Past, a request from you guys, Benny Briscoe. Can't wait to talk about him. Be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
If you're over the age of 50 and considering buying an annuity in the next 60 days, I have some important news for you. Don't buy an annuity until you understand the pros and cons of annuities. A free book to help you maximize your retirement income from television host and 3-time author Josh Melberg has been released. This book reveals little-known truths about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms. Grab a pen right now because we are about to offer you this free book that unlocks the 5 little-known secrets we believe baby boomers and seniors should know before buying an annuity. Call 800-493-9652 now, and you'll receive a free copy of Josh Melberg's book, Next Gen Annuity Strategies Revealed. As a bonus, we'll also send you the #1 mistakes retirees are making with their investments today, and a free DVD on how you can get up to 33% more income in retirement. Call 800-493-9652 to have your free information kit rushed to your door. Again, that's 800-493-9652.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks. Like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C Show. Glad you could be with us. And it's that time again. It's one of my favorite segments of the show and the longest running. It's our Blast from the Past. This week's Blast from the Past is being brought to us in part by KOFantasyBoxing.com. Check out the website, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Sign up today. Today's show, today's Blast from the Past is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game, or as Sal likes to refer to it, Alex's Magic Computer Box. It's actually just the Title Bout Championship computer game that you can have too, so just download a copy of it right now. by visiting our website, BillyCBoxing.com. This week's Blast from the Past is a request. And if you have a request to do a blast, just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. We got several coming up to you, and I love getting the requests from you guys because it gives me a feel for, what you're thinking. Is it one of your favorite fighters? Is it a guy you just want to learn about, et cetera, et cetera? And this week is one of these guys, one of these kinds of guys that is a throwback fighter that would be fantastic in every era, except I wonder how fans would have looked at him today, how people base their opinion of fighters on records alone without looking at who they fought, where they fought, how long they fought, etc. This week's Blast from the Past is on Benny Briscoe. And joining me right now to tell us all about Benny Briscoe, fully clothed and ready to roll, is my man Alex Perpali. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. Benny Briscoe. Were you as excited about doing Benny Briscoe as I was when I got the request?
Yes, this guy's really good. And, unfortunately for him, I think, and this is something I found a quote from Russell Peltz, and I think there was another article that was titled something along the lines of, he was sort of a guy born in the wrong time. He was born right between the ages of real, lucrative TV boxing. And I think he could have made a lot more money. If he was around today, he would have picked up a few titles, and he would have made a lot more money. And he had a really exciting style. It's just that that TV wasn't, it was sort of in the transition phase there, where the TV of like the 50s, wasn't quite, the purses weren't quite as generated as high in the 70s.
No, but I mean, the funny thing about this guy, no, you're 100% correct. But the funny thing about this guy was that, the way fans look at fighters today, and a record, they might not, if he was around today, they might not have given him the credit that he got during his own era and years later. I mean, we still look at him as a great fighter. Unfortunately, he's not in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure why.
I think part of it is that he just hasn't been on the ballot, which makes me wonder why. At least that was one of the articles I read, which was in the obituary Bernard Fernandez wrote. So it was right after his death that he hadn't been on the ballot yet. Excuse me. It seems weird, especially on a year like this where, there's maybe one or two shoo-ins, and then it's going to be interesting who gets that third spot.
What are you banging a bass drum?
If Benny Briscoe was on it, he'd get in.
What are you banging a bass drum today, or what? I keep hearing.
Maybe it's the table. Yeah, it's weird. I am. Oh, maybe the microphone's not close enough to me.
Wow, you sound way better.
I'm getting strange. Is that what's way better?
Well, it's way better. That would be good to have the mic closer. But I mean, when you look at,
put the headphones on without the mic.
Yeah, when you look at some of these guys he fought, that he went the distance with, guys that are known of destroying people. Carlos Monzon, Rodrigo Valdez, Emil Griffith. He had a couple of Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Eugene Cyclone Hart, the original Cyclone Hart. Like I said, Emil Griffith, Vito Antuofermo, Marvin Hagler. I mean, all these great fighters he goes the distance with. And I know that sometimes we look at the Hall of Fame and we say, well, he fought so-and-so who's in the Hall of Fame, but he lost, and you've been pretty accurate with the Hall of Famers saying, well, I kind of see a trend, when they beat other Hall of Famers, they kind of get in. And Benny Briscoe came up short against all these names I just mentioned, Hall of Famers that he came up short against. But considering the era and the fact that he's fighting all these guys, it's not like he fought one or two of them. He fought them all, and, it's, It's pretty mind-boggling. Anyway, tell us about Benny Briscoe as young. Just start off like you always do.
All right, sure thing. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have the mic there. Just completely spaced. But yeah, Benny Briscoe, he was born on February 8th, 1943 in Augusta, Georgia. He was the oldest of 9 children. And he was a kid who he was just athletic. In high school, he played football, and he did very well in football. And he also ran track. And he listened to doo-wop music. At 16 years old, he moved in with his great aunts, Georgia May and Skippy, in North Philadelphia. And that's where he started boxing, where he went to the 23rd PAL gym there in North Philly. And as an amateur, he won some regional titles. I think he was second in the national AAU in 1962. And he piled up a terrific record as an amateur. One of the articles I saw credited him at 70 victories, only 3 defeats. And he turned professional at 19 years old, September 10th, 1962, and he became very popular in Philadelphia, eventually in the whole world. He was, as a fighter, what was there not to like? He had that, the shaved head, so he had that fearsome kind of hard-edged look. He had great punching power, a chin carved out of solid rock. He was very aggressive. He had a crouching bob and weave type of style with a nasty left hook. And, one of the things that I love about boxing, I'm a comic book guy. That was one of the things I loved as a kid growing up. And to a great degree, sports, boxing, any sport is, in a way, it's an extension of adolescent male fantasy. That is one of the things that one of the things I loved about boxing that is very similar to comic books is that you could be a badass. There's another badass out there who might have a style that can beat you. And maybe not beat you every day, but it'll beat you once. And I think maybe this is what I was missing from what you were alluding to at the opener here, is that Briscoe lost, but he came back. And that was one of the things that happens in comic books. Guys get their asses kicked, but then they figure out, okay, this is how I fight the Green Goblin. And the next time I fight him, I kick his ass. And that's exactly what Benny Briscoe did. People beat him, but he avenged those defeats. And that's always, to me, a sign of a great fighter, is that not like we've, just had this era of, your O is everything. Never lose, never lose. No, losing, especially if it's a decision loss where you fought your ass off, like the first time when he loses to Carlos Monzon in Argentina, he thought of that as a win. And the next time, in a lot of the guys that Briscoe lost to, the next time he faced them, he won. He avenged defeats.
Well, that's what I think boxing lacks today, Alex. It lacks the fighter that learn. You see, a guy like Benny Briscoe, as successful as he was as an amateur, the pro game was a lot different than it is today. He falls into that category where I say, and I know you always like when I say this, you've used it before back at me, but boxing was a trade. These guys, they became a fighter. And like any trade, you go to work every day, and you got to make a living. And how do you make a living? Inside the boxing ring. So when you look at this guy's resume and you see how often he fought, similar to the generations prior to him, and then after him, it started to change a little bit, where fighters don't fight as often. They might spar more, but they don't fight real fights. Benny Briscoe was not that guy. He fought a lot of fights, and some days he was on and some days he was off. And like you said, he would always want to avenge a fighter, avenge a loss, or come back and look good after a poor performance. That's something that fighters don't even get the chance to do today. And while we're at it, a guy like Benny Briscoe was not being overprotected. He wasn't being coddled. If there was a fight and they needed a guy that was willing, ready, and able to fight, Benny Briscoe was the guy. I'll fight him, and we don't have those guys today. And one of the reasons we don't have them isn't because maybe the fighter doesn't want to do that. It's because they lose value if they do that. So it's kind of a catch-22. We blame a lot of fighters today. He doesn't fight this guy. Oh, he'll only fight this. But realistically, the truth of the matter is it may not be the fighter's fault. I'm sure there's fighters out there that like to cherry pick and pick their own fights and, make everything, all the consolations in their favor and stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's fighters out there that do that. But, the truth of the matter is that there are other fighters that would love to fight everybody and anybody, but they're advised to be careful because if they get that L, all of a sudden the networks don't want to air them, the fight opportunities aren't there. That wasn't the case for Benny Briscoe.
Absolutely not, yeah. And I think that was, I think in a way it's interesting because I think you do bring up an issue here that to some degree maybe not only was boxing a trade, but fans were entertained with, I don't know how to describe it. The point I'm trying to make here, but not so much entertained with less, but it didn't have to be, every time was supposed to be a blockbuster fight. And a lot of times what we have now is almost every fight is billed like that, whether it is or not. So it's like you don't know what the truth is. Nowadays, I mean, back then, watching a 10-rounder, it didn't have to be, have some trinket attached to it to be thought of as a decent, interesting matchup, And I think a lot of his fights were like those kind of things. He, toiled in relative, he was local and very popular. He brought the crowds in, but it was a while before he finally got a shot. And again, it's in the guy's hometown of Buenos Aires, but that's a great fight against Carlos Monzon. And again, this is a time when there's one world champion. It wasn't like there was multiple titles you could pick up, and in an age like that, like if we were today, I'm sure he would have. He probably would have had multiple titles.
Yeah, so many fighters of yesteryear would have been champions today. But, he always reminded me, when you look at his style, his physical appearance, I mean, this guy, Marvin Hagler always came to mind in my head. I mean, he fought like for some reason, I thought Hagler fought him twice. But it looks like only once. But
once. And one of the things that was interesting is that's a pretty damn good fight. It's on YouTube. He's way past his prime. He's 35 when he fought Marvin. And the quote that I have here, did I type it down? Russell Peltz, even then, Nigel Collins says, the only time I ever saw Hagler back up most of a fight was against Benny. Benny was pretty much over the hill then, and Marvin was just coming into greatness, but even Hagler wasn't going to stand toe-to-toe with Briscoe. At the time, Briscoe was 35. The Marvelous One was 24.
24 with 43 fights.
Yeah.
Hagler had 43 fights at 24.
In a way, Hagler was sort of the vindication of at least the spirit of Briscoe, because in that age, Hagler got the credit that Briscoe never did, and it was weird that he kind of looked similar to him with the shaved head and the aggressive, pressuring, power punching type style. And also the Philly Wars that Hagler had. I mean, that's the thing about Hagler that people liked, is that he was sort of a throwback, and part of what he was being a throwback to was Benny Briscoe. It was kind of weird.
Exactly. And Benny
seemed like that. Of course, they're both their own men, but there was at least the bald heads. It's hard not to see the similarities.
And the styles were similar.
Yeah.
The styles were definitely similar. And another guy Benny Briscoe reminded me of, when you mentioned in the beginning that he had a vicious hook to the body, was Hurricane Carter was very similar in style and physique and,
Another
and appearance. I know, in appearance, and it was a tough era. Those guys were tough. It was almost like the end. The boxing as it was known went out with a bang, so to speak, because all these guys, the Benny Briscoes, the Marvin Haglers, the Hurricane Carters, all those guys, were coming up at the same time. Well, Hagler obviously a little later, but and then it's gone. The 80s, then after the 80s came, and when people say that to me all the time, the 80s, the last great era of boxing. And I swear to God, I say this all the time, Alex. If you would have come up to me in 1985, 1987 and said, hey, Bill, you think you're witnessing the last great era? I would have laughed. And I would have said, this, the great era? I wouldn't have even given the 80s the credit that I do now, because it's never been anything close to that since. And you go prior to that, and you have these kinds of guys, the Benny Briscoes of the world.
Yeah, it is funny. Well, one of the things that was amazing about this guy also was, and I think also part of the style that we're talking about is a Philly fighter. This sort of aggressive, willing to slug style, and to get in there and to do harm as well as be willing to take a licking, and that was something that that I think traditionally people really admired at the time, and maybe in a way we've shifted. I think styles change. I just got a haircut yesterday, and the barber was remarking about how the haircuts he cuts today are the same haircuts he was cut in 1940. All these years later, they're back again. That's the thing that happens, I think, in boxing as well, in anything. Styles come, they ebb and flow. Right now, that kind of, as much as there's tremendous fan base for a slugging Philly style, there's always going to be a fan base for that because people like that. Maybe some people, fans today might not like that. Today we've had the Mayweathers, the Roy Joneses have sort of made a counterpunching style, a more defensive-minded style, fighting off your back foot, a little more trendy. But back then, the trend was for guys who like to go cheek to cheek, jowl to jowl, and mix it up. And he certainly did. And that's the thing about this is that all these fights the fights with Monzon were great. The fight with Emil Griffith, so that when you think about Hall of Famers, you got Luis Rodriguez, who we did a couple of weeks ago, Emil Griffith, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Carlos Monzon. He fights them all, a couple of them, Rodriguez multiple times, Monzon multiple times, but they're all losses. But as we've seen, I don't know, these are tough, close losses. The first fight with Monzon, some people thought he won, but again, it was in Buenos Aires. So I don't know. He also had fights with. He had a win over Eddie Mustafa Muhammad when he was a middleweight, and the fights with Rodrigo Valdez. Even Valdez is a guy you could consider getting into the Hall of Fame. He is not a Hall of Famer either. Oh, wait a minute, I missed another one. He lost to Vito Antuofermo.
Yeah.
So, in terms of a record, come on. People talk about Vinny Pazienza. Please, don't let Vinny Pazienza it's wonderful he came back from a broken neck. But if he gets in there before a guy like Benny Briscoe, it would be a tragedy.
You mentioned, some of the wins, but, he did some of the losses, but some of the wins, he did beat, like we said, Cyclone Hart. Billy Douglas was a good fighter. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, but also Vincent Rondon. Yeah, he was a good fighter. Georgie Benton he beat. Benton is more known
another great Philly fighter,
right? But Georgie Benton is known as a great trainer, but he was a hell of a fighter. So one other thing that I found interesting, especially today, with the resurgence of racism and stuff that we see. And make no mistake, during Benny Briscoe's career, the racial tensions in the U.S. were probably as high as they are now, if not worse. And he chose to wear the Jewish Star of David on his boxing trunks because of two reasons I found pretty interesting. One was because some people said that he wanted to practice being being Jewish, wanted to practice the Jewish faith, but the truth was that he was doing it in respect to his Jewish managers, which I found pretty cool that he was able to do that during a time when maybe most other fighters wouldn't have chose to do that. What's your thoughts?
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that. I think I do remember in the fight with Hagler, he has the Jewish star on his trunks, doesn't he?
Yeah, he always did. All his trunks going all the way back, at least after the first 15 fights or so, he wore the Jewish star. He also, as we're
Star
running,
David, I think.
Yes, that's what I meant. The Star David. The Jewish star. But he also was in Ring Magazine's one of the 100 greatest punches of all time, which is pretty impressive as well.
Well, another thing that I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure, maybe this Russell Peltz Jewish? I mean, maybe he was, because he was his long-term manager. And one of the things that was interesting is eventually Peltz got to the point where he felt Briscoe was taking too much punishment and should retire. And was damaging his legacy, and not only that, more so his health. And actually wrote a letter to some of the commissions, and several of them did go along with it, but good old New York did not, and so he kept fighting. I don't know. I mean, Peltz has nothing but positive things to say about him now, of course.
Well, Peltz,
they did have a separation there over something that, and that was one of the things Peltz actually says. He said, "I didn't want to see him get hurt. I didn't want people coming around 10 years later and pointing their fingers at me and saying, you're the reason Benny is like this."
Well, Peltz was his promoter for all those years. He did have some Jewish managers. But listen, we're running out of time. I wanted to ask you, how did he die? He died fairly young. He was only 67 years old. What was the cause of death? I know that you said you found his obit.
I did find his obituary, but it just said he passed away with family, peacefully. It didn't mention what it was, whether it was
he must have
heart attack or what.
Yeah, he must have been battling an illness. How did he do in title bout?
He did very well against the two-headed monster at middleweight rather. Right now we have, of course, Golovkin and Canelo, who, as far as I'm concerned, have unfinished business. Against Golovkin, the first time they fight, Golovkin won a split decision. The scores are 116 to 114 for Briscoe, overruled by scores of 116-115 and 116-114 for Triple G. All three judges scored the 6th and 11th rounds even, and Judge Billy Costello also scored the 9th even. There was no knockdowns in the fight, but I thought that was weird that, you get all those even rounds. When they fight 100 times, Briscoe does get the better of him. 56 victories, 39 defeats, 5 draws. He stops Triple G 42 times, and Golovkin won 26 of his 39 by KO. When he fights Canelo Alvarez, Canelo, the first time they fight, also wins a split decision. The scores are 116-112 for Benny Briscoe, and overruled by one score of 114-113, and the Golden Boy friendly judge who had it 118-110 for Cinnamon. So it seems the game is aware of things go on.
That's cool.
But Alvarez put Briscoe down with an uppercut in round number 4. Wow, I just had a weird, strange sound in my head. And same thing against Canelo. Briscoe gets the better of him. 56 victories, 38 defeats, 6 draws. He stopped Cinnamon 23 times, and Alvarez won 10 of his 38 by knockout.
Interesting. Hey, one thing I want to add is, you made a comment, cheek to cheek. They fought cheek to cheek. I can't help, and as much as fans want to say, sweet science, they drank the Floyd and Mayweather Kool-Aid, it's better to be defensive, that's what boxing's about. No. And if you go back and you look at the interest level and the popularity of the sport of boxing, it was at its peak when the fighters went toe-to-toe, cheek-to-cheek, as you said, Alex. And that's when people loved the sport of boxing. And when it became what it is today, a lot of people stopped watching it. So
and also the look at guys like James Toney. You can be defensive and still fight real close inside in an entertaining fashion and still cover up well. Even like Winky Wright at his best, at some of his better fights, he covered up, but he was in there mixing it up.
So Terrence Crawford, Terrence Crawford's a great example of it. Terrence Crawford can box and avoid punches, but he's not afraid to mix it up.
Yeah, and I think guys that have that in close style are always fun to watch.
No doubt.
I mean, that's one of the things that's fun about Anthony Joshua is that for a gigantic man, he can fight inside and he's willing to fight inside.
No doubt. A great job, Alex. Benny Briscoe, our blast from the past this week, former world middleweight title challenger. He had a career record of 66 wins, 53. Coming by knockout. He had 24 losses. He was stopped one time in the 24 losses. He had 5 draws, 660 rounds with a 55% knockout ratio. His total fights for his career, 4 short of 100. He had 96 fights, fought for 20 years as a pro. I believe he should be in the Hall of Fame. Benny Briscoe, our blast from the past this week. And like I said, Alex, great job. We will look forward to you next week, my man.
All right, thanks a lot, Billy C.
That's Alex Papali doing a great job as usual. Listen, I got to take a short break. When I come back, I got an email I'm going to read very quickly. That's because it's from Willie. I'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Stop living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun, and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now. I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
That was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now.
Stop. Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you! I hate you!
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And we got one more email, and this one's from my man Willie. It says, "Hey Billy C, thanks for the email, Willie. We appreciate it." Okay, I went through it a little too quick. Anyway, he complains that I read his emails too fast. So he says, "Hey Billy C, I'm surprised that you think Daniel Dubois is a little short for today's heavyweight division." We were going back and forth. I am going to pass by that because I made an error. For some reason, I thought that Willie had sent me a link to an interview, and he's standing there next to the interviewer, and the interviewer is just as big as him. And for some reason, I thought that Dubois was 6'1". And I had said to Willie, he's short for a heavyweight. But Willie corrected me, and I looked for myself. He's 6'5". And by the way, 5-0 with 5 knockouts. He's won 7 rounds. Just FYI, how good does this kid appear to be? He's 20 years old. His combined record of his opponents, first of all, he's had 5 fights. 10 times more fights. The combined total of fights, his opponents had 50. But the best part is their combined records. 40 wins, 10 losses, no draws. Keep an eye on Daniel Dubois. Anyway, Willie says, I just finished listening to yesterday's show, so I wanted to give you some recent quotes about recent quotes from Frank Warren regarding Daniel Dubois. He says, Anthony Joshua has already been knocked down by Daniel Dubois in sparring and will lose his heavyweight title to Dubois next year. That is a shock claim of promoter Frank Warren, who also promises Man Mountain Dubois would not let Joshua off the hook in an interview that he had against with the Telegraph. He said Dubois is the best heavyweight prospect I've ever seen at this stage. There are obvious fights out there with Wilder and Joseph Parker, the 2 other champions, but Daniel Dubois is very talented. I don't go crazy about young fighters because there's always a long way to go. But Dubois is by far the best heavyweight at this stage of his career that I've seen in my boxing time. He says he's got a fantastic jab. He has real power. He's relaxed. He's a natural boxer and a puncher. Don't worry about Joshua running out of opponents. I think Dubois could be ready in 12 months' time. I'd put him in with Parker after 5 more fights. There's always a question marks and things to answer, but I have talent here, mark my words. We've seen Joshua under pressure from Vladimir Klitschko and survive, but Klitschko turned the heat off and let him off the hook. This kid wouldn't have let him do that. I have a heavyweight who has Joshua's number all over it, and he just needs a little more experience, and he'll be ready to fight him. And, of course, he's talking about Dubois. And Willie says, well, Bill, as you can see, Frank Warren holds Daniel Dubois in very high regard. Let's hope it's true. Yeah, I read Willie's email in full, so I don't want him crying. I don't want to follow a trail of tears all the way back to England. Now, on tomorrow's show, we are not doing a live show on Friday I apologize for 2 days off this week, but, it is what it is. But I got some interesting comments from Deontay Wilder that I want to read tomorrow. I'm also going to break down and give you my predictions of the big fights scheduled for this weekend. But on this day in boxing history, November 1st, in 1938, Soli Krieger knocks out Al Hostek in the first round to win the world middleweight title. It took place in Seattle. On this day in 1907, Frank Mantell knocks out Honey Melody in the 15th round to win the world welterweight title. It took place in Ohio. On this day in 1922, Mickey Walker wins a 15-round decision over Jack Britton to win the world welterweight title. It took place in New York City. What a great fight between two Hall of Famers, Jack Britton and Mickey Walker. On this day in 2003, Juan Manuel Marquez wins a 7-round technical decision over Derek Gainer to retain his IBF and win the WBA World Featherweight titles, and that took place in Michigan. On this day in 2002, Oscar Larios knocks out Willie Urin in the first round to win the WBC World Junior Featherweight title. Took place in Sacramento, California. And on this day in 1965, Ernie Terrell wins a 15-round decision over George Chuvalo to retain his WBA World Heavyweight title, and that took place in Toronto, Canada. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. Like I said, make sure you tune in tomorrow. I got a lot of stuff to talk about, and mark down that we will not be doing a live show on Friday, but we want you guys to catch up on all the shows you might have missed. So I'll leave you guys with this. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.